God will not look you over for medals, degrees, or diplomas, but for scars. Elbert Hubbard. Medals can be awarded by others. Degrees can be issued by institutions. But scars can only be carved by life itself. They are the marks of the times we fell down and stood up on our own. Of long nights struggling with pain that no one knew of loss, failure, betrayal, and silent sacrifices that needed no recognition. We try to accumulate titles as if they were tickets to recognition, then accidentally equate our self-worth with external praise and success. Yet, life always has a way of stripping away all those glamorous outer shells. There are those who possess countless degrees only to crumble before their very first adversity. Conversely, there are ordinary people who wear no medals on their chest, yet their hearts possess extraordinary strength because they walked through storms and still kept their kindness. It is challenges that forge character, just as steel only becomes strong after going through red-hot fire. A diamond, too, can only shine after enduring immense pressure deep within the earth. Those scars are not just physical pain, but also invisible wounds of the soul. It is the time you were rejected, but kept on trying. It is when you lost something precious, but did not let bitterness turn you into someone else. It is when you forgave the person who hurt you, not because they deserved it, but because you did not want your soul to remain imprisoned in hatred. Every scar tells a story of courage, of growth, and of human resilience. What is precious is not that you have never been hurt by life, but that after everything, you still have enough love to smile, enough faith to move forward, and enough strength to be a pillar of support for others. Life does not judge people by the number of times they win, but by how they face their failures. Success may command admiration, but it is adversity that commands respect. A trophy may gather dust over the years. A degree may become obsolete as times change, but the scars of courage will always remain as testament to a life truly lived, truly loved, and truly fought. Do not worry too much if you do not have many achievements to be proud of today. Focus more on how you are growing after each fall. In the end, what remains is not what you possessed, but who you became after everything you went through. And perhaps that is the most beautiful part of a life. The function of prayer is not to influence God, but rather to change the nature of the one who prays. Soren Kierkegaard. Prayer is not a way to change the will of God, but a journey for humans to change themselves. For the Almighty does not need to be persuaded, but the human soul is always in need of illumination. When we fail, we wish for circumstances to change. When we suffer, we wish for others to change. When facing adversity, we hope for a miracle to appear. Yet, the hardest thing to change is the heart of each individual. Prayer is like standing before a clear mirror. At first, we only see the problems of life, but the quieter we become, the more clearly we see our own limitations. Impatience, selfishness, fear, pride, or a lack of tolerance. It is in that moment of confronting our inner self that we begin to grow, not because circumstances immediately improve, but because our perception of and response to them have shifted. Prayer is also like dropping a stone into a rippling lake. The stone does not change the sky reflected on the water, but it causes the ripples to gradually settle. When the lake becomes still, every reflection appears clearly. So it is with the human soul. Amidst the hustle and bustle of life, we are easily swept away by anxiety, anger, and ambition. Prayer creates a space of silence for the mind to rest, for emotions to be realigned, and for reason to find its voice once more. The miracle lies not in the appearance of a supernatural event, but in the fact that the person who prayed is no longer the same when they stand up. Those with a deep inner life do not usually pray for a storm-free life. They pray for the courage to walk through the storms. They do not pray for every door to open, but for the perseverance to keep knocking. They do not expect to avoid failure, but hope to have the fortitude to learn from it. That change is the greatest gift prayer brings. For when the inner self grows stronger, the difficulties that once broke us become lessons. The wounds that once bred resentment turn into sources of empathy. The trials that once terrified us become opportunities to discover a strength we never knew we had. The value of prayer does not lie in how many words you speak, nor does it lie in whether what you desire immediately comes to pass. Its true value lies in the fact that after each prayer, you live with more kindness, calmness, tolerance, and strength. When a person changes from within, the external world gradually takes on a different meaning. Perhaps that is precisely what the saying implies. Prayer is not to change God, for perfection requires no change. Prayer is to bring the human heart closer each day to peace, wisdom, and love. And that is the most enduring miracle anyone can find in their life. Never be afraid to trust an unknown future to a known God. What exhausts humans the most is not what is happening, but what has not yet happened. We often consume so much energy worrying about tomorrow, trying to control things that are beyond our capability. Yet, the paradox of life is that the more we try to grasp the future, the more we lose our peace in the present. This saying reminds us that what is reliable is not a guaranteed future, but the one who guides that future. When the foundation of faith is strong enough, uncertainty is no longer a threat, but becomes a space for hope to grow. Fear is always born from the void of the unknown. We fear failure because we do not know what the outcome will be. We fear loss because we do not know what lies ahead. We fear change because we are used to clinging to what we can control. The mind is like a traveler walking through thick fog. When unable to see the road ahead, it immediately imagines abysses, obstacles, or dangers that have never existed. Yet, if the traveler knows there is a guide who is familiar with every twist and turn of the road, fear will gradually give way to calm. Faith does not clear the fog of the future, but it gives us the courage to take one step at a time without being consumed by worry. Faith in God is like a child holding their father's hand while crossing a wooden bridge over rushing water. The child does not understand the structure of the bridge, does not know how deep the water is, and is not strong enough to protect themselves. What gives them peace is not that the bridge does not shake, but that they know the hand holding them will not let go. So it is with the life of each person. We cannot know what next year will bring, where our career will lead, or how long our loved ones will remain with us. But if the heart believes that there is a Creator who always accompanies us, then the future is no longer a terrifying darkness, but becomes a journey worth exploring. Interestingly, faith does not make humans passive. On the contrary, it releases people from the paralysis caused by anxiety. People of faith still work hard, still plan, still strive every day, but they do not let the outcome dictate their peace of mind. They understand that their responsibility is to sow seeds with all dedication, and the harvest will come at the right time. It is this surrender that creates a strange inner strength. When no longer obsessed with controlling everything, people live more freely, wisely, and resiliently in the face of inevitable events. The future is always an unwritten page, and that is something no one can change. What we can choose is our attitude when facing that blank page. We either live in fear of what has not yet come, or we walk with the faith that every trial has meaning in a grander plan. This saying does not encourage people to abandon responsibility for their lives, but invites them to let go of the burden of controlling things beyond their limits. For when the heart places trust in a God whose love, faithfulness, and mercy are well known, even an unseen road is no longer a reason to fear. It is this very faith that turns uncertainty into hope, anxiety into peace, and every step on the journey of life into progress in the growth of the soul. Do not fear. Our fate cannot be taken from us. It is a gift. Dante Alighieri. People often live in fear that others will take away their opportunities, circumstances will steal their happiness, or unexpected events will ruin the future they worked so hard to build. Because of that fear, many spend their entire lives competing, defending, and controlling everything. Yet, if what truly belongs to you is a gift reserved just for you, then no one can steal it. What others can take away is only what you possess, not what you were born to become. We see others succeed and worry that our own opportunities have shrunk. We see someone pull ahead and think we have been left behind. From there, envy, insecurity, and pressure silently grow in our minds. But nature has never operated that way. A rose does not have to compete with a pine tree to prove its worth. The ocean does not envy the sky, for each possesses its own unique beauty. Each person is also given a different journey, ability, and mission. When we try to live someone else's life, we lose the most precious gift that life reserved specifically for us. Imagine a river originating from a mountain peak. On its way to the ocean, it encounters rocks, deep ravines, sharp bends, and even seasons of drought. The river does not stop to complain because high mountains block its path or because other streams flow faster. It simply continues to find its own way. After years and months, it is those very twists and turns that create valleys, nourish fields, and bring life to so many lands. Human life is also like that. What makes a destiny is not whether the path is flat or not, but how we persistently keep moving on our own path. Difficulties are not signs that you are going in the wrong direction. Often, they are the very tools for the gift within you to be forged and revealed. Understanding that destiny is a gift does not mean passively waiting. A gift, no matter how precious, needs to be opened and preserved. Talent needs to be trained. Opportunity needs to be seized. Faith needs to be nurtured. If we just sit still and wait for a miracle, that gift will forever remain inside wrapping paper, never to be unwrapped. But when humans dare to act with all sincerity and determination, they will realize that many doors seemingly closed are only guiding them toward a more suitable path. There are failures that are actually redirections. There are losses that are preparations for something better. What seems to be taken away today is sometimes only to make room for what truly belongs to you tomorrow. The most terrifying thing is not losing your destiny, because true destiny is something no one can steal. What is far more terrifying is letting fear make us give up too early, doubt our own worth, and live a life driven by insecurity. When we believe that each person carries a unique gift, we will no longer live to compete with others, but focus on becoming the best version of ourselves. And then, success is no longer about possessing more than others, but about discovering, developing, and sharing the gift that life has entrusted within ourselves. That is the deep meaning of a cherished destiny and a life lived to the fullest. Faith is not the belief that God will do what you want. It is the belief that God will do what is right. Max Lucado. People often pray with the hope that life will unfold according to their own plan. We hope the door we knock on will open, the one we love will stay, the career we pursue will succeed, and every difficulty will quickly vanish. But faith is not a guarantee that everything we desire will become reality. Faith is the peace of accepting that there is a higher wisdom, seeing what the finite eyes of humans cannot yet behold. What is right is not always pleasant, but in the end, it is always what leads us to growth. Most of human suffering does not come from reality, but from the gap between reality and expectation. When everything goes as planned, we call it luck. When things do not go as expected, we easily think we have been abandoned, treated unfairly, or that our prayers were unheard. But it is exactly then that faith is tested. If we only believe when everything is smooth, that is satisfaction with circumstances, not yet faith. True faith appears when a person still maintains peace amidst what they cannot yet understand, keeps walking when the path ahead is still dark, and still hopes even when they cannot yet see the outcome. Imagine a child holding their father's hand as they walk to the hospital for surgery. In the child's eyes, the doctor is the bringer of pain. The needle is terrifying, and the surgery is an experience to be avoided at all costs. If given a choice, the child would only choose sweet candies, toys, and happy days. But the father understands that love does not always mean fulfilling every desire of the child. Some of today's tears are necessary to buy tomorrow's health. Human life, in the face of life's events, is much the same. We usually see only a single moment, whereas God sees the entire journey. What we call a loss is sometimes actually a protection. What we view as a closed door might be keeping us from entering a path that leads to greater suffering. Therefore, faith does not make humans passive or resigned to fate. On the contrary, it helps people do their absolute best without being imprisoned by the obsession of controlling the outcome. A person of faith still works hard, still learns, still loves, and contributes with total responsibility. But they understand that some things lie beyond their own limits. Instead of letting disappointment turn into bitterness, they turn it into patience. Instead of letting adversity breed resentment, they let it forge character and humility. It is this inner transformation that is the greatest strength of faith. The miracle of faith is not that every door opens according to human will, but that even when a door closes, the heart does not lose hope. Some prayers are answered with a yes, some are answered with waiting, and some are answered with an entirely different path. Only when looking back after many years do we realize that what we once viewed as failure was actually the beginning of something better. Faith is not trying to make God do our will, but learning to trust that His love, wisdom, and plan always surpass the limits of human understanding. Once we understand this, we will no longer merely seek what we want, but will be at peace to receive what is truly good and right for our lives. All that I have seen teaches me to trust the Creator for all I have not seen. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Humans usually only believe in what the eyes can see, the ears can hear, or the hands can touch. We feel secure when everything is proven and controlled. Yet, most of the most important things in life lie beyond human sight. No one sees the future, yet everyone is walking toward it. No one sees tomorrow, yet everyone is preparing for it. We remember pain much longer than gratitude. A single failure is enough to make us doubt the entire journey, while hundreds of times being supported are easily forgotten. When facing a new challenge, the mind often focuses only on things that could go wrong. It is like a person walking in the dark, staring intently at the shadow, forgetting that they themselves have crossed many long nights to greet the dawn. If we calmly look back at our lives, each of us will realize there were events that once drove us to despair, yet ended up opening unexpected doors. There are things once considered losses that later became turning points, making life better. Those experiences are like stones placed along the road, one by one, building the bridge of faith. Nature also silently teaches humans that lesson every day. No one sees the seed silently sprouting beneath the soil, yet the farmer still patiently tends to it, believing in the law of life. No one sees the dawn when the night still covers the sky, yet no one doubts that the sun will rise. A ship in mid-ocean cannot see the harbor when fog rolls in, but the sailor still continues to steer, trusting the compass in their hand. Faith is like that compass. It does not make the fog disappear, but it prevents us from losing our way among things we cannot yet see. The magic is that what we have experienced in the past is often the strongest testimony for the future. Each time we are supported after failure, each time we find light after darkness, each time we discover meaning after suffering, is proof that life does not operate in a meaningless way. Some answers do not come immediately. Some doors only open after years of patience. But looking back, we often realize that every event, every encounter, and every trial played a part in leading us to where we needed to be. It is this awareness that turns worry into hope and uncertainty into the courage to take the next step. Faith is not built on things that have never happened, but is nurtured by things that have been proven. Looking back at the journey we have traveled, we see how many times we thought we could not stand up, yet in the end, we did. So many closed doors ended up leading to better paths. So much seemingly meaningless suffering became the most valuable lesson in life. All that has been seen, experienced, and felt becomes the foundation for our peace before what has not yet been seen. And perhaps that is the deepest beauty of faith, not because we know for sure how the future will unfold, but because we believe the one who guided us through yesterday will not abandon us on the journey of tomorrow. None of us knows what might happen even the next minute, yet still we go forward because we trust, because we have faith. Paulo Coelho, the entirety of human life is built upon the unknown. No one can see what will happen in the next hour, tomorrow, or years from now, yet every morning we still wake up, make plans, study, work, love, and nurture our dreams. If we only acted when everything was certain, perhaps the world would have stopped turning long ago. What keeps us moving forward is not an absolute guarantee about the future, but the belief that the journey ahead is still worth continuing. The greatest human fear is always linked to uncertainty. The brain tends to seek safety and wants to control every situation. When it does not know what will happen, the mind often fills the void with negative assumptions. It imagines failure before success has a chance to appear, thinks of loss before joy can arrive, and worries about things that have never happened. Because of this, many people are not defeated by circumstances, but by fears created by their own imagination. Faith does not remove life's uncertainty, but it prevents uncertainty from becoming chains that bind the soul. When we have faith, we learn to accept that not every question needs an answer immediately. A baby learning to walk. The child does not know if the next step will cause them to fall. Yet, they still take it. A sower cannot see the harvest the next day, but still diligently tends the field. The sailor leaves the harbor when ahead is only the vast ocean, unable to see the other shore, yet still hoists the sails, believing in the wind's direction and the ship's capability. Human life is also like that. Every decision is like a step into uncharted territory. If we only wait until we can see the entire road to begin, we will stand forever at the starting point. Sometimes it is the first step that reveals the next part of the path. What is notable is that faith is not the denial of difficulty. Those with faith still know there will be failure, loss, and stormy days. They do not live in the illusion that life is always smooth. The difference lies in the fact that they do not let adversity dictate their attitude toward life. They understand that each event carries a lesson. Each challenge has the capacity to forge character, and each closed door can be the preparation for another, more suitable door. It is this very perspective that helps them remain calm when others panic, maintain hope when others give up, and keep moving forward when others halt. Life has never promised that the road ahead would be free of thorns. The only thing we truly possess is the choice to continue or to stop. Every day that passes is proof that humans live by faith much more than they think. We believe that the sun will rise after the dark night, believe that the seed will sprout after days of care, and believe that sincere efforts will eventually yield worthy results. It is this belief that helps us walk through the unknown with a steady heart. Therefore, the value of life does not lie in knowing beforehand how everything will turn out, but in the courage to keep walking even when the destination is unseen. And sometimes it is the very steps guided by faith that lead us to things better than anything we could have ever imagined. Sometimes God allows what he hates to accomplish what he loves. Joni Eareckson Tada. Why does life hold such painful, unjust, and devastating losses if there is an almighty being who always loves humanity? At first glance, this seems contradictory, but if we look deeper into the fabric of human experience, we see that not every painful thing is an endpoint, and not every pleasant thing is a benefit. There are pains born not to destroy, but to restructure the soul. There are losses not intended to take everything away, but to open a deeper level of meaning in growth. What brings comfort is called good, while what causes pain is viewed as a deviance. But this view is too short-sighted to understand the complete picture of life. A wound is never pleasant the moment it occurs, but it forces the body to heal and grow stronger. A failure never brings joy at first, but it can break false illusions and guide us to a truer understanding of ourselves. Sometimes, the very things we hate become the most powerful tools to lead us to what we love. A blacksmith is forging a sword. Metal must be placed into red-hot fire, heated to the point of deformation, and then hammered repeatedly to remove impurities. If we only look at each individual moment, we would think the metal is being destroyed. But in the overall process, it is the only way to transform it into a sharp and durable tool. So it is with human life. There are stages where we feel we are being tested beyond measure, pushed to our breaking point, even shattered. Yet, it is precisely in those moments that the weak, illusory, and dependent parts are stripped away, leaving a stronger, deeper, and truer self. Suffering is sometimes permitted as part of a larger plan that humans cannot yet fully see. What humans call hated is often tied to the cognitive limits of the present, while what is called loved belongs to the final outcome that only time can reveal. There are doors that only open after another door has closed. There are paths that only appear when we are forced to leave the familiar road. And there are losses that, if they did not occur, would keep us from ever changing. What is important is not denying the pain, but understanding that pain is not the whole story. We often stand in the middle of a chapter and think it is the entire book. When we are in the dark, we cannot see the light on the next page. When we are hurting, we cannot feel the healing that is taking shape. But looking back at our own journey, many will realize that the times seemingly worst were actually the turning points leading to the deepest awakening. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" try asking, "What is being formed through this?" Because, perhaps, behind what we do not understand is a process silently leading us to a better version of ourselves. And sometimes, the very things we do not want are the ways that life, or faith, is leading us to what we truly need deep down. Then, pain is no longer just pain, but becomes a part of growth. And what was once considered what God hates is the very path leading to what He loves most in humans: the awakening, healing, and perfection of the soul. I know now, Lord, why you utter no answer. You yourself are the answer. Before your face, questions die away. What other answer would suffice? We always begin with questions. We ask why we suffer, why this happened, why our prayers were not answered in the way we hoped. But the deeper we go into life experience, the more we realize that not all questions are born to have answers in the form of words. There are questions that only exist to lead us to a state of understanding that transcends language. The human mind is like a non-stop search engine. It always wants to explain, always wants to analyze, always wants to put everything into a cause and effect order. But there are realities that cannot be reduced to concepts. There are experiences that, if we try to explain them, we lose their very depth. The presence of the sacred, if felt directly, needs no further argument. It is like light. We do not need to prove the sun exists when we are standing beneath it. You yourself are the answer. This is the most crucial turning point of the quote. It marks the shift from external, search-driven thinking to internal recognition. We often search for answers as if they lay somewhere far away, like an object that could be handed to us. But there are times when the answer is not information, but presence. When a person goes through enough loss, enough silence, enough confusion, they can reach a strange state. Not that every problem disappears, but the fear of the problem no longer occupies the mind. A state where we stop dialoguing with worry and begin identifying with peace. Then, the question is no longer seen as a problem to be solved, but becomes a door leading to a deeper understanding of oneself. What humans once called the silence of God could actually be the space for the mind to stop clattering, giving the deeper self within a chance to speak. And in that silence, a new truth emerges. Not all answers come in the form of words, but some are felt through the transformation of the inner self. Before your face, questions die away. Dying away here does not mean being erased, but being transcended. Just as when we climb a mountain peak, the winding roads below are no longer important, not because they never existed, but because the perspective has completely shifted. When humans touch a deeper level of awareness, they are no longer obsessed with explaining everything, but begin to live in the trust that even the things not understood lie within a larger order. It does not mean humans will no longer suffer or have questions. It only says that there is a point where the question no longer needs an answer, because the very presence of the divine has become the answer. And when we reach that moment, we no longer stand facing a silent universe, but stand in a peace so deep that all explanations become redundant. This is not the end of thinking, but the beginning of a way of understanding that transcends thought, where faith no longer needs proof, for it has become the most vivid experience of the soul. I do not believe that any darkness will endure forever. JRR Tolkien. Darkness in human life is not just external events, but also fear, despair, a sense of being lost, and spiritual voids that make us feel as if there is no way out. But what is notable is that darkness, no matter how thick, never possesses an eternal nature. It is merely the absence of light, and therefore, it always depends on the presence of light to exist. Humans often tend to magnify pain in the moments they are experiencing it. When in difficulty, we easily believe that the current situation will last forever. A failure becomes proof that we cannot succeed. A loss becomes a conclusion that we will never be happy again. But if we look back on our own journey, we will realize that most phases that once seemed insurmountable eventually became memories placed in the past. Humans do not only live in the present, but are also deceived about the future by the emotions of the present. And at that very point, faith becomes a crucial counterweight. It prevents us from turning a long night into a permanent destiny. Imagine a person standing in a forest at night. Around them is thick darkness, unable to see clearly the road ahead. In that moment, they might believe this forest has no exit, that darkness is all that exists. But in reality, the sun still exists behind the horizon. It is just that the time has not yet come for the light to appear. Life also operates in a similar way. There are stages where we do not see direction, do not feel meaning, do not hear an answer. But that does not mean meaning does not exist. It is just outside the current scope of observation. Not believing that darkness will endure forever is not denying suffering, but refusing to grant suffering absolute power. This is a decisive inner choice. Instead of viewing pain as the fixed nature of life, we view it as a stage unfolding within a larger process. This perspective does not make difficulties disappear, but it completely changes our relationship with them. When believing that darkness has an end, we begin to have the capacity to endure it without being defined by it. In spiritual depth, light is always a metaphor for hope, understanding, and life. No darkness can exist by itself without light being somewhere. This creates a comforting paradox. The very existence of darkness implicitly affirms the existence of light. Without light, the concept of darkness could not be recognized. Even in the darkest moment, a foundation of hope is silently present. No state in life is absolute, including suffering. Everything is in motion, all within a process of transformation. And when we can believe that darkness is not the end, we will begin to walk differently, no longer in despair, no longer paralyzed, but carrying a quiet patience with the belief that light, though not yet visible, is still on its way. And that very belief is the first step so that darkness truly no longer has the power to dominate the soul.